There was a question on the underground that was going around. It had to do with Cain Velasquez, WWE, and UFC. So here's how the story works. Cain left the UFC and went to train for professional wrestling. He was going to get brought in at some low level, and he was going to even be under a mask, and it was going to be a promotion that I believe exclusively aired in Mexico. He might have gone and done that. He might have actually debuted in this promotion, but again, I didn't see it. I couldn't even tell you the name of the promotion. Something happens within Cain's training, and it largely, by reports, had to do with his attitude/work ethic. Everybody liked the guy. He comes in, he's a straight-up badass that does not act like a badass, and he just wants to absorb information. And everything I've ever heard about Cain, from his time as a collegiate athlete at Arizona State to his first day in the pros at AKA, that's just the word on Cain. There's no attitude, there's no ego, there's no I'm a tough guy. He just does what's asked of him, and when it's time to compete, he goes really, really hard and then gets really, really good results. But that's what Cain is. Regardless of how scary his eyes look, and regardless of what you've seen him do in a cage, everybody that knows him says he's just a really sweet guy that works really hard. There's a rumor, and I know that this is not true, at least not literal, but I like to perpetuate it as though it is true, because I do believe something close to this happened. But the first day that Cain went into AKA, and by first day, somewhere in the first week, he kept trying to get Javier Mendez, Coach Mendez. He kept trying to get Coach's attention. And Coach had other things to do. I mean, he's got a room of killers, right? He's got Josh Thompson's on this side, and Luke Rockholt's over here, and Khabib's in the corner, and Daniel Cormier's on this. I mean, it was just a who's who. Cain couldn't get any attention. He kept coming up to Coach. And Coach is working with somebody and finally looks at Cain and goes, "Go kick that bag 1,000 times and then talk to me." Just meaning, give me some space, kid. I'm a little bit busy right now. Cain goes over and kicks the bag 1,000 times. And then comes back and says, I've kicked the bag, Coach. What should I do now? Now, I know that that isn't a literal story, but I do believe the theme of that story to be very accurate. I do believe Cain was probably bothering Coach, who was busy, who gave him a task that was never meant to be done, and Cain went and did it. That I do believe. I only share that with you because when he went over to professional wrestling, this is what everybody saw and felt. And before you know it, Cain, who's supposed to go off to this little promotion underneath a mask that only airs in one country, is all of a sudden brought over to WWE to do a segment with Brock, the biggest star in the company, okay? Hold that thought. WWE's going through some cuts. We're in this weird time right now. They released a whole bunch of wrestlers. I can't remember how many got released, but I mean, it was a big 30. I mean, it was something big. It was a substantial number. Cain came out as one of those guys. Where that ties in is, with that door closed for today, does that reopen the door for Cain to come to the UFC? If so, and Cain does return, what does a return even look like? Where does he fit into the mix? Who's going to raise their hand to fight him? What does that fight mean? And who's willing to go and do that work? Is somebody going to see that and go, this is an opportunity to get over on a former world champion and a future Hall of Famer who's had his eye off the ball? And they go, hell no, I'm not doing that. That's Cain Velasquez. Call somebody else. I mean, that used to be why they did it. Cain actually got into the UFC because Dana respected the fact that nobody would fight him. He simply could not get a fight anywhere else. That was Javier Mendez or Bob Cook, whoever made that call. That's actually what they said today. Hey, Dan, I got this guy. He's a heavyweight. No one will fight him. And I know you got a bunch of guys under contract that'll fight whoever you tell them to fight. Could you make somebody fight this guy? That's how that call went. And Dana's like, yeah, send him over. He's getting a minimum contract, but I'll get him a man. I mean, that's how that went. And he goes all the way to world championships. He goes all the way to main events. Cain's had a very special career, but he's such a quiet guy. He's such a ho-hum guy that as much as Cain is respected and as many accolades as he's got, they're not enough. I believe fully that Cain, and this is at a period of time in his career, okay, maybe not true today now that he's represented these. I believe there was a period of time when Cain Velasquez was the most intimidating combat athlete of all time. I am including George Foreman. I am including Mike Tyson. I am telling you, he was the most feared guy. I would be behind the curtain and see opponents, big names, studs, that did not want that curtain to be pulled back, that light to come on, and them to have to walk out there. They did it. They showed courage. Guys did that with George Foreman and Mike Tyson too. I'm telling you, I don't know of anybody that's put fear in people more. I just don't know. You're welcome to your opinion. I'm sharing my opinion. But he went away so quietly. I didn't even know he was doing this pro wrestling thing. And he came out, he fought Ngannou. It looked like he wasn't totally there that night, regardless of how that went, or the punch, or the knee, or I'm just saying, it looked as though he had closed that page. Now, motivation's a very real thing. We've spent a large part of the day talking about motivation. That's a very real thing. So when you have options, yes, your motivation's going to be spread around. Where do I put that focus? Sometimes you're forced into a spot. Sometimes you're like a wounded animal in a corner. You only got one way out, and it's straightforward, and you got to fight. I mean, motivation's an interesting thing. So when Cain's got a couple of options, you could see where the motivation would get spread around. If an option's gone and only one's left, I don't know that he's going to return to fighting. I don't know that. I don't know that I fully believe his time in professional wrestling is done. The fact that he did segments with Brock Lesnar, didn't have to come out under a mask, didn't do any gimmick at all. He wrestled under the name Cain Velasquez. If you're able to go and professional wrestle under your birth-given name, it's a major sign of respect that you've done something well in this world and that name carries some weight. So I don't know that I completely buy the fact that Cain's time in professional wrestling is done, as much as I believe he was the low man on the totem pole in an organization that favors loyalty and it favors experience and it does favor time. I think that he was probably the low man. And I don't know that he would necessarily be forced by any means to go and do anything. I think when he went into professional wrestling, that was very much a choice. And largely, I'm talking financial, right? I understand that's a turnoff whenever we talk about money, but Cain is one of those guys, made plenty of money, and he was also pretty good. He didn't like have a secret gambling addiction you didn't know about, or a secret, I mean, he just wasn't that guy. Married well, father, family man, stayed at home. I mean, he was one of these guys. Whatever money Cain's made, Cain still got the money. But I think if he was to choose, when he was to look at the landscape of that heavyweight division right now, knowing one of the reasons that Daniel Cormier had gone down to 205 pounds was because he was training and teammates and friends with Cain. He goes, all right, Cain, you started in this. You've established yourself at heavyweight. Instead of us, let me just leave the division completely. We never have this weird talk, this weird conversation, and nothing ever gets in the way of our relationship. That is the way it happened. Then Cain left, Daniel moved up, Daniel took over. But it's a very interesting thing. I don't believe that Cain wants to go into the UFC any more than he wants to go to the WWE and have anything less than being the number one guy. The fact that Daniel has openly said, I'm only going to do one more match, may open. I know this is a pie and this is one small piece of it, but I think that may open an incentive to Cain to go back. And I do think that if Cain was to come right back in there, I think you could find plenty of very interesting matchups. I mean, the way that Ngannou fight ended was flat weird. The fact that he was upset by Verdum, who happens to be back. That was a rematch that was always supposed to happen. And then Stipe versus Cain is like the lost match of the heavyweight division.